The Nigerian Stock Exchange today hosted a media interactive section on the planned listing of leading telecommunications firm Airtel Africa plc, scheduled for Friday, July 5, 2019. The head listings regulation for the NSE, Mr. Godstein Iwenekai, gave capital market correspondents an insight into the key issues around the proposed listing on the market.
Airtel Africa plc, Airtel or the company, will be listed on the main board of the exchange as a cross-border listing via an IPO. Now, this is a secondary listing because as we speak, Airtel Africa plc was listed on the London Stock Exchange as the primary destination exchange. So it's coming to list in Nigeria as a secondary listing. Now, by secondary listing, we mean when securities already listed on a primary exchange are subsequently listed on other security exchanges. In this case, the issuer is not subjected to the full requirements applicable to listing on the other security exchange at which it seeks a secondary listing. I will explain here. What this means is that because Airtel is already listed on the London Stock Exchange, our regulation around Airtel will not be as we do for other companies that are listed here primarily. And because LSC is a member of the World Federation of Exchanges, there's a level to which we rely on what they do at the LSC to regulate Airtel. So Airtel Africa's primary listing exchange is London Stock Exchange. The list is a cross-border secondary listing because the primary listing is in one jurisdiction, that is the UK, and the secondary listing is in another jurisdiction, Nigeria. Now, the company also undertook an IPO by way of book build. And I will explain what we mean by book building. It's a price discovery mechanism that is used in the capital market to price securities for public sale for the first time. If the company is not sure about the exact price at which to market its shares, it can decide a price range instead of an exact figure and give an option to investors to decide how much they want to place on the shares of the company. The method of offering shares by providing a price range is called a book building method, which is what I just explained. Now, the price range sets a floor price and the highest price in which investors can bid. So you can say, I want you to bid between 80 and 100 naira. If a particular investor believes that you have good value, he may decide to go for 100. Another one can choose 80, 90, as the case may be. Investors have to bid for the shares within the price range given, and based on the demand and supply of the shares, the issuer price is then fixed. Now, book building is a process of price and demand discovery by which an issuer attempts to determine at what price a public offer should be made, based on demand from qualified institutional and high network investors. Now, another thing I want to clarify is that this Airtel book building was limited to institutional investors and high network individuals. So it was not open to all retail investors. Airtel, through an IPO by way of book building, as already explained, issued 39,227,968 ordinary shares of 50 cents each at 363 naira per share in Nigeria, and 637,178,959 ordinary shares of 50 cents each at 80 pence per share in London. The company's issued and fully paid share capital before the IPO was 3,081,744,577 ordinary shares of 15 US cents each. The company is listing its entire issued and fully paid shares amounting to 3,758,151,504 ordinary shares at 50 cents per share on the LSE and NSE. So the total market capitalization of the shares to be listed in Nigeria is 1,364,2 208,995,952 naira, based on the listed price of 363 naira. After the book building, the price eventually at which they will be listing is 363 naira per share. Now, let me just talk briefly on our review of the Airtel's application. The application by Airtel was considered in line with the cross-border listing rule books of the exchange, which we call the issuers rule. You know, I explained to you there are different ways you can come to the market. If you are coming via listing by introduction, there are rules that apply to you. If it's an IPO, there are rules, and if it's a cross-border listing and secondary listing for that matter, we also have section of our rules that apply to that type of listing. That is exactly what we did for Airtel. As provided in the cross-border listing rules of the exchange, an issuer's listing can be categorized as primary or secondary, but the Airtel own is secondary. Airtel met with all requirements of the exchange for a cross-border secondary listing, except for the requirement to have at least 300 shareholders. The exchange granted a waiver on the 300 shareholders requirement to enable Airtel to list with its 113 shareholders. I'll pause here and explain. The exchange cross-border listing requirements, the rule also grant the exchange the powers to grant exemption or waivers in any part of the rule or every part of the rule, because the rule is designed in such a way to help to attract cross-border listings to the exchange. So if we have a company that is going to be listed on the NYSE, LSE, GSE, that are all members of the WFE, and we know that they are also going to meet stringent regulatory requirements in the foreign destinations, and we have requirements that we feel we can waive to attract such big and foreign companies to Nigeria. The rule as approved by the SEC gives the exchange the power to waive such requirements. So after their book build, about 87 shareholders subscribe to it in Nigeria. Across Nigeria and London, they have about 130 shareholders, which is still short of the 300 shareholders requirement of the exchange. The National Council of the Exchange at its meeting on Monday to consider the application waived this requirement and granted an approval to list. But the implication of this is that we will mark the securities of Airtel as below listing standard because they are not meeting this requirement now. It's not a waiver that will last in perpetuity. The waiver is granted for them to list at this level, and as retail investors begin to come in, we expect the number of shareholders to increase, and they will eventually meet the 300 shareholders requirement. And once that is done, they will remove the BLS mark to show that they have fully met all the requirements of the exchange.
Also speaking at the media briefing, the divisional head listing business NSE, Mr. Olumide Bolumole, said the listing will deepen the Nigerian capital market.
Airtel Africa, which is an amalgamation of 14 countries, or companies in 14 different countries, was looking to do a listing in London and was considering doing a secondary listing in a number of exchanges, including the NSE. They had spoken to the Johannesburg Exchange and they had engaged the Nigerian Stock Exchange. So for us, we see this as a transaction that's positive in that in all of Africa, they've chosen the NSE as a platform to list, because indeed, as Godstein mentioned, they are in 14 other countries. In fact, one of their subsidiary entities is already listed in those exchanges, in the exchange of that country. I think it's the one in Zambia. So we see it as an opportunity, and it's a way of deepening the market by allowing an institution of, well, I guess, Pan-African reach to be listed in the Nigerian Stock Exchange.
Responding to questions raised, Mr. Jude Emeka, Divisional Head Trading Business for the NSE, stated that the exchange has in place an efficient market system to ensure transparency in the trading process.
We have the opportunity or the privilege of having one of the best trading systems in the world. And to guard against price manipulation or anything of such nature, we have gone further to acquire what you call SMART, which is also a world-class surveillance system that allows the market surveillance team to see what is going on across the market, granular to what individual investors are doing. And so in our markets, we have the methodologies to prevent any form of price manipulation. So price manipulation does not occur in our market. So we need to be careful how we write the narrative so that we don't create the wrong impression. Concerning how trades will flow, Lumide has already said it. It's a willing buyer, willing seller. So if it's a secondary market trading, so basically you have conversation with your broker and you place an order. Your broker places that same order in the order book, and it will clear based on demand and supply, based on where the price is. So there's no issue of price manipulation. And then to address the London differential and the Nigerian differential, you need to understand, really, typically that's what cross-border listing is about. That's really why, that's the beauty of the system. And so that is not in itself an issue. As a matter of fact, that is market efficiency that it will encourage. And so the shares are fungible, and there's a process of the fungibility where shareholders in London can move shares to Nigeria and sell if they have the need to do so, you know. And let me just say that we don't see that as an issue, the fact that the London listed before the Nigerian one, because the Nigerian shareholders also have the ability to trade within the domestic market. And if there's any price differential, I think the beauty of cross-border listing is to help price efficiency across borders. So that will help improve our liquidity if our pricing requires people in London to bring their shares to sell. I mean, it will help improve the market liquidity. Thank you.
As the market braces for the listing by Airtel Africa PLC, it is expected that this will boost investor confidence and attract more large corporations and multinational companies to list on the NSE.